Back in the early 80s, when I was in college trying to play some golf, I found out about this dude named Dave Ragan, who at the time was the head golf coach of Tennessee Temple. He came here to Chattanooga to do that, I think. And he also was the head pro, I'm pretty sure, at Lookout Mountain. So I went up there to take a lesson from the guy. I heard about him, kind of legendary guy. I'm like, oh, I'm gonna go take a lesson from this dude. So I practiced 24/7 for many days in a row to get to the point to where I was really hitting the ball good. And I went up there and took a lesson from Dave Ragan. And the stuff that he told me in that lesson and a few subsequent lessons, I worked on for many years, and I still remember them. So I wanted to do this lesson thing, the lesson video, to document this stuff. And, you know, Dave Ragan learned all this stuff from Byron Nelson. So Ragan was quite a protege in the late 50s when he came out on tour. And, you know, the best ball striker I ever saw. And he probably was the most gifted athlete, too, that ever played golf. From the elbow to the fingertips. I mean, his wrist bones were massive. I mean, that dude had big-time forearms. I mean, he could just absolutely murder it. And had it under control better than anybody I ever saw. So here's some of the lesson stuff I learned.
Dave Ragan will be hitting next, and Dave is playing out of Sun City, Florida. Dave has also hit a beautiful drive right out the center of the fairway. Dave will be in.
All right, here's the stuff that Dave Ragan taught me that I've been working with for 40 years. Something like that, okay? First thing he showed me was ball position. He said, put your feet together. Start out with your feet together. Right by the wall. That's what he said every time. And he said with the long clubs, take a little step and a big step. Okay? He said with 5-iron, 6-iron, 7-iron, he said take a medium step and a medium step. Okay? And with the short irons, 8-iron on down, he said take a big step and a little step. So that's what he told me about ball position. He told me about this, about the grip. He said he wanted your fingers spread like that. He wanted the thumb and this part of the hand, on both hands, to be connected. And he had an awesome looking grip. It looked like a vice when he put his hands on there. But he said it looked like that. So when you put your hands on the club, it looks like this. Then, when I took that first lesson from him, you know, I was hitting the ball good. I went up there, I made sure I was hitting it good. And I had a lot of leg drive, reverse C, hit big high hooks is kind of what I hit. And Ragan watched me hit about 10 balls. And he said, okay, do this. He said, first of all, I drag my foot like this. I would drag my foot. I wore out shoes on the toe because I was dragging my foot all the time like this. He told me, he says, don't let that foot move. He said, just let it come up on its toe. Like that. So he's like, hit the ball, let it come up on its toe. He told me, he said, don't let it go flopping over this way, which is what I was bad about doing. He said, don't let it flop over that way. He said, that thing should be straight up and down. Straight up and down like that. And then he told me, he says, you don't want to hang back with this reverse C. He said, you want to finish standing straight up and down on your left leg. Not hanging back at all. He said he wanted you to finish standing straight up and down on your left leg, like that. And then the last thing he told me, it's kind of a critical thing, he said you want to finish with your left arm in a perfect L. And he said you want the shaft on your hat band, on the band of your visor. So that's what he said to do. Finish with the left arm in a perfect L, and that shaft on your hat band. And of course, when you go do all that stuff, and I mean, of course, I was in better shape back when I was 25, but I'd swing that golf club and swing it into that position like that. Get my foot just right, standing on my left leg like that. And amazingly, I started hitting the ball dead straight like a laser beam. And didn't think I was ever going to make another bogey after the first lesson. I asked him about my swing. What did he think about me swinging the club? Because he never really talked about that. And the only thing that he said about my swing was, it could be a little flatter. That's what he told me. He said it could be a little flatter, a little bit more around your body. But he never did talk about where the club's at. He didn't talk about none of that stuff. He talked about your grip, talked about ball position, and then he talked about the finish position. And that's all he talked about. Dave Ragan's nemesis shot was a block. He was a little bit of a cutter. His nemesis shot with a driver sometimes was a little bit of a block. It used to make him so mad. And he practiced a lot of times with a teardrop loop like this. He was always trying to practice out in this way, working the club out there and back in this way. Because Dave Ragan swung the club, people that know him, way inside and over the top. So he actually swung the club this way, but he tried to practice going this way. And anybody that knows him knows he's the best that ever lived, including Ben Hogan.
Dave will be in